Today's episode is with Shawn Jezek, who's in his 5th season at Catholic High School of Baton Rouge in Louisiana. In that time, his team has been to 4 state championship games with wins in 2017 and 2020. Coach Jezek has served as the Linebackers Coach and the Special Teams Coordinator. Before coaching at Catholic, Coach Jezek received an MBA and an MA in Sports Performance Psychology and has brought many of these tools to his team and campus. I've been able to talk to Coach Jezek about some of these things over the last couple years, and he was on our virtual summit, which we did in 2020, doing 2 sections on performance psychology in football, and I will put both of those as a bundle and offer to save on them. I think they're great for this time of the year. As you've settled into camp, now into the season, you want to start to look at what are the things that I can do beyond the X's and O's, beyond the playbook, to get my guys to perform, especially on game day and in high-stress situations. And so today, Coach is going to talk about next play speed, and we'll share more about how you can get these resources after this. Here's Coach Shawn Jezek.
A little bit. And so for those of you guys that maybe didn't see the replay or didn't join with us last week, a lot of stuff that we talked about where it was a lot of performance, arousal, and regulation for players going into it. Talked about finding a number and trying to regulate whether they were too hype, too calm, or whatever they needed to be as far as competition goes. And talked about it primarily from a pregame experience, which we feel is wildly important. Different opportunities and things like that for coaches to check into players to check into themselves. But obviously, as many of us know, if you've ever been part of a football game before, a lot of that pregame stuff can go away very quick. I'm special teams coordinator at Catholic High School, very excited to be in that position. Kickoff return, oftentimes can set the tone for those first moments of the game more so than anything you do in the pregame is. So I wanted to be able to go through and talk about some stuff that we also encourage our athletes at Catholic to do as far as in-game adjustments. And we're talking about different terms. I'm going to show you some different slides that we give to our athletes to talk about how to kind of regulate that stuff when something goes bad, or even if something goes well, how to try and turn around and transition into what we would call, the next play. And when we talk about next play speed with them. And so I'm going to start with that, talk about some things that coaches can do to kind of help that process out as well. I have to admit early on the next play speed is not something that I came up with. I've got here in the huddle notes. I hope you guys can see that. But a classmate of mine at John F. Kennedy when I was getting my master's degree in this, Graham Beckart, actually created a lot of stuff. And if you're a basketball coach on here, if that's your second sport, or if you're interested in that, I encourage you to go check out Graham's YouTube channel. It's called Play Present. He does a really awesome job. He works with some MBA guys. He's working with Zach Levine right now. I guess they're working on the horse challenge that they're doing on ESPN. And so he's really the A student. You guys are getting the B student today. But I hope that that's okay with you guys. But Graham kind of created this idea once he left school, and I was able to grab some materials that he was putting out there. But talk about next play speed as far as how do you transition from, again, a success or failure of a play into the next play. And in football, that's really clearly defined for us as far as, the whistle blows, the next snap of the football, so on and so forth, really easily defined. But again, next play speed is talking about those things. And in basketball, what Graham talks about is even within a play or even with the clock running, you lose your dribble. Now you got to get back down on defense. You get the rebound. Now you're trying to go down and score. And he does a really good job. He uses a lot of stuff that Michael Jordan did, or a lot of clips of him as kind of a player that was really, really good at this and took advantage of the game because they were so good at it. We talked to our players about trying to capitalize on this as well. Success and failures of a play, if we can get back down to neutral or back down to whatever our arousal number we said we wanted to be before the next ball is snapped, we're going to have an advantage over the team that we're playing or whatever thing that they're trying to do. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into this when we talk about next play speed. Okay, and so some of the things that we're talking about is we want to encourage our players not to think of this as something where they are completely flushing a play or they're not trying to get rid of. what happened on the previous play, if it was a mistake or if it was something they had success in. One of the things that we talk to our guys about is there's a misnomer in football, and people in the press talk about it a lot. There are some coaches that talk about it, and there's a suggestion that quarterbacks and cornerbacks need to have short memories, right? If a quarterback throws an interception, he should forget. Or she should forget that play or that interception. One thing that we encourage our players to do is that's false. High stakes positions have a high level of game adaptability, which means they don't need to forget what happened. They need to adjust to it. Was it a coverage mistake? Was it a route mistake? What was it? And let's learn from it. We talked to our guys about the reflective practice with their arousal control. In the same way that we want them to remember how they felt before a game that they may or may not have been successful in. We also want people to remember successes and failures that they have on a performance field as well. And so we don't want them to forget about it. We want them to keep playing on it and adjust to the next play. So things that we're telling them to be aware of and to try and adjust for is we talk about what the mandatory stimuli are in between plays and in between things they're doing. And these are things that they have to pay attention to, that they have to be aware of. And this is kind of a list that we put together. I tried to be real exhaustive with it, talked to a lot of players and said, all right, hey, what are the things that you have to attend to between the whistle and the down of one play into, all right, what you have to do for the very next play. And this is a list that they created, right? A situational evaluation of previous player maneuver. Basically, what did you do? What happened? Did they get the first down? Did they not get the first down? Did they complete the pass? Did they not complete the pass? So on and so forth. Physical evaluation of yourself and equipment. We've had situations, games where face masks have broken, or shoes have come untied, or chest pads have broken, so on and so forth. What do I have to do with myself, with my equipment? Going down, reaction to feedback, receptions of the next play call that the offense or defensive calls. And essentially what we've suggested to our guys and what we've gotten back from them is there's a whole lot of stuff that you have to attend to before you move from one play to the next. And there are things that can help you to do that, and there are things that can hurt you to do that. And we try and help them define these things. And we try and help them to understand what types of things they do that help them, again, get this really great next play speed, or things that hurt them to get their next play speed. And kind of what we encourage them and what we've come up with is there are low priority processing things that cause breakdowns between one play and the next. So I'm ill prepared for the third down play because I didn't handle second down well, or I'm ill prepared for the PAT because I didn't handle the touchdown well, so on and so forth. And we see this happen all the time in sports with penalty situations, with loss of yardage, with lost assignments. But we also see it in just the grind of players who make mental mistakes and can take themselves out of a game if they're not getting the ball enough, if they're not tackling well enough, so on and so forth. And so what we talk to them about is the low priority processing things from this previous slide, right? So this list of things that they have to attend to. The low priority things are their reactions. And we don't encourage them to be robots, but what we do encourage is say, hey, you need to come into a game with a game plan of how you're going to address these different things. And reactions need to be something that you can monitor by yourself. And not reliant on game situations, not reliant on teammates, coaches, et cetera. And the reactions specifically that we talk about are the previous play, right? If a guy beats you, you can't fight him. That's obvious. But also if you succeed on the play, then there's things that you need to be able to do. You can't spend all your time thinking about that, thinking about stats. You need to get ready for the next situation, the next play, et cetera. You can't have reactions to feedback. I'm going to talk later on about feedback that you get from players, coaches, et cetera, and how that can help and hurt players at different levels and different ways in which they play. But reactions to that are things that can get you out of being quick with your next play speed. And then assignment alignment issues, right? Okay. If we call a blitz and you're not part of the blitz, or we call a different personnel on the field, your reaction to that adjustment from defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, et cetera, don't have a place within this processing system if we want to attend to everything else along the way. So we have the low priority issues, and then we have the high priority ones. Okay. And these are the ones that we want to make sure that our players have the ability to do. And one thing that I didn't mention with this list, and most of you guys are aware of this, right, is there's a lot of stuff going on here. And depending on the style of play of your opponents or the style of play of you, right, there's a variable amount of time that you have to deal with this stuff. For us, it's about 18 seconds. between, a whistle being a tackle being made, a whistle being blown, and then the next ball is snapped. Right. But there's different alignments. There's different personnel groups that come onto the field. And so very little time to get through all of those different items. And so we try and tell them, hey, there's high priority processing that we need to prepare for. We need to create rehearsals to do this. A lot of this comes from some of the visualization exercises that I talked to you guys about last week. And it's stuff that we've suggested to athletes for a long time. Many of you guys have probably used that technique as well, as far as going through a play and going through a route and saying, hey, I'm visualizing me putting my foot here or there, so on and so forth. Another encouragement to make is hey, practice the in-between plays as well, because as we've mentioned and as Graham kind of designed for his basketball players, is sometimes the next play speed is oftentimes more important than the in-play speed. And so we encourage them to go through and plan out how they're going to attend to all those stimuli that I showed you earlier, right? So evaluation, what is the game situation? This is more of a proactive thing, all right? So I didn't make the tackle. Now it's first down, they're in plus territory. Now I need to be able to do something about it. Or we didn't complete the pass, it's second down. What do we need to do? Okay, so it's preparing for the next play, the scenario that the previous play set up. The reception of play calling, all right? And so we're not dealing with the feedback of the play. A coach didn't call my number, so woe is me. I'm going to feel bad about it. Okay, but I received the play. What do I need to do? For defense, right, this is pretty critical in my opinion. And as the linebacker coach, I try and talk to guys about doing this, right? If we do call a stunt, then we want to get that player's number up. We want that player to have a plan on getting his arousal level up, right? Because if he's on a blitz, he's not doing as much thinking as he would if he was reading the guard, dropping into his zone, things like that. And so when I receive this play call, and if my number is called, what do I need to do with that information? Do I need to be called? Is this a stunt that I bluff? So on and so forth. And so we try and encourage them, hey, find out what your plan is and find out what you're going to be most successful in this. Had a bunch of questions at the end of the talk last week about, well, what do I tell players to do directly? And what if I disagree with them? And really disagreements occur all the time, but it's much less about me and it's much more about them. If they design a plan that works, we're going to continue with it. We're going to win games. We're both going to be very happy. If we design something, if I tell a player to do something and it doesn't work for them, then we both suck. Right. And so kind of telling them, putting the power in their hands, putting the autonomy to say, how do you want to approach your next play speed is really the best beneficial quality of that. And so one of the things that we talked to them about is how much should I react? And this is really positive and negative direction, right? Do we want to be the guys that celebrate and party and celebrate? And that's fine if it is. I tend to be more on the left side here with the meal can and, hey, I'm just going to work every day, but I'm not fun at parties. And so guys that play with us, some of them really like to have that flair. And if they can handle that and if they can deal with everything they need to for the next play speed, then more power to them. If it's something that they need to be kind of this lunch pail type guy showing up to work every day, then we encourage them to do that in the positive situations as well as the negative situations. Same way with the energetic, right? Because a lot of guys do play well with emotion. Emotion can be a driver for them. We talked about last week, emotion, arousal, all those things are heavily interrelated. And so whatever your players see as the best situation, the best advantage for them, encourage them to go for it, but to do so in a consistent manner and something that makes sense for them. And again, if you disagree, and this came up in the questions last week, then you can always go back to the tape and say, hey, you thought you were 85 Bears, celebrate a whole lot in this situation. But then the next play, you blew this assignment or you blew this alignment. And so let's talk about it and let's try and redirect how we're approaching those situations. What feedback am I going to relate to? What feedback am I going to try to understand? What feedback am I not going to try and relate to? One of the things that we give to our players to try and suggest how to do this is we try and make the suggestion of get back to your image. All right. And so there's things that go on in a game that take you out of your arousal level or your preferred feedback methodology or your whatever mindset you want to approach in this sort of tackle, whistle to snap of the next football. And so one of the things that or tools that we've given them and tools that have been around in the performance psychology world for a long time. I didn't create any of this stuff. One of which is thought stopping, and it's exactly what it sounds like, right? If you're having a negativity, you're mad at a player, you're mad at yourself over the next play. The easiest thing to do, or I shouldn't say the easiest, but one of the preferred things to do is to tell yourself to stop thinking about them. And my text is covered up a little bit here by my bad meme. But one of the things I encourage players to do is don't always flush the bad. And flush is a term that we use in our program a lot. And it is something that's good. And this is not forgetting. Flushing, there's a difference between the two. We don't want to forget things that we've done or plays that happen on the field, but we can flush emotions. We can flush feedback, instruction, et cetera, that were associated to that call if we're moving on to the next thing. The defensive coordinator that we have at Catholic High School uses flush a ton, primarily because our defense can be pretty variable within games, and there's rules that we have when we line up in a 4-3. There's rules that we line up in a 3-4, and flushing information as we're transitioning between those two things can be really important. But things that happen to us on a field are things that keep us out of our certain arousal or regulation that we want to be in. We don't necessarily want to flush all of those things. What we encourage them to do instead is don't let yellow mellow. And it's kind of a crude joke, and it's something that I kind of keep to just position meetings and things like that. But essentially what we're saying is if there's something that's really negative going on, if there's a player that's gotten under your skin, if there's a player situation, a official, right, made a bad call or something like that, and it's totally outside of your control, right, get rid of it if it's something that's extreme. If it's something that's just hindering under the surface, then that's something that we can deal with, and that's something that we can sort of process and work through. And that's when we encourage them to do my tool here, key the re. And the re just stands for these three words, right? Replace, prepare for the next play, or reframe my idea, my approach to what happened, and then return to whatever my situation needs to be. And if we can do this in 18 seconds, awesome. You get to stay on the field. If you're a guy that has a tough time doing this in 18 seconds, which, every coach in here probably has 3 or 4 guys on their team, this is, significant to or speaks to, then we got to pull you off. And we talk to our players about this. I've had many talks with my position groups about, the inability to do this in 18 seconds. You can't be on the field because those negative thoughts, those negative views of oneself, if you can't get rid of that, then we're better off with the next guy. What these words essentially mean is so replace, right? So if something negative happened in the first play, I aligned poorly, I did my assignment poorly, I didn't take on the block the right way, then hey, we're just going to go and replace those thoughts by taking over, right, the mind and thinking about what the next play is going to be. There's this really cool thing that your memory does in your brain to try and be more efficient in its processing, and it uses a lot of what's called interference. And there's proactive interference, and there's retroactive interference. And when your brain is doing all this stuff with memory and trying to make that more efficient, it utilizes interference to block out different things that it doesn't feel it needs. And so when you start to think, all right, hey, I'm just going to replace, I'm just going to go on to the next play, then you are utilizing some of that the retroactive interference, where you're saying, okay, I'm not worried about what happened last time, but I know the situation, I know the outcome of the next play. What do I need to do within it? Reframe goes along more with, all right, hey, if I just got beat by a guy, okay, I'm not a bad person. They work out too, right? We have the privilege of playing at the highest level in the state of Louisiana, Division I football. And we play a lot of really good teams. And there are times that we've got a guy and they've got a guy that's a little bit better. And so if our guy is beating himself up all game, all right, because he gets beat on an out route, the block doesn't work, so on and so forth. All right, then that player is going to have a really bad game by the fourth quarter. He's going to be mentally, sludge. And so we try and encourage our guys, hey, reframe the situation, talk about what you can control, and get back into whatever regulation or arousal level you need to be at. And then the one that I think is the most powerful, and I'm going to go ahead and give credit again to a guy named Ken Ravizza. He was a real famous sports psychologist for a long time, passed away a couple years ago. But he was the sports psychologist for Cal State Fullerton baseball, which any college baseball fans in here have definitely heard of that school. Really, really good powerhouse down in the Southern California area. And Ken Ravizza worked with that team, and he worked with a lot of major league guys. And he put a lot of focus on centering. And what this tool was a way to sort of make sense of conflict. and to, instead of allowing your brain to get too wrapped up in the situations, the competitive environment that you're in, the bad things that have happened to you in a sporting event, or the good things that are happening to you in a sporting event. He sort of talks about using this tool and encourages players to use this tool called centering, which was a way to get back to base. He's got a great YouTube video out there. I don't have access to it right now. But if you look up Ken Ravizza and Evan Longoria, there was a Sports Center special that talks about, because he was working with him for a while, and talked about Evan Longoria when he walked into the batter's box. If he wasn't having a good game at bat, or if he was having an incredible game and just needed to get back to his center or be mindful of the experience that was going on, he would encourage Evan to look at the top of the left foul pole. According to Ken Ravizza, and again, I'm not a huge baseball guy. I like to watch it, don't know a whole lot about it, but would make the suggestion that the top of the left foul pole was in the same spot in most all major league stadiums. And so if he made that his center point, then every time Evan looked up at this, it was a reminder to him and a suggestion that, hey, I need to get back into my game. I need to return to my level of play, whatever I've prepped for, whatever mindset I need to have in order to do whatever it is I need to do, hit the curveball, fastball, whatever. In football, we have plenty of these, right? I know our program talks a lot about every football field has the exact same dimensions. The uprights, unless you're crossing state lines, in some situations, the crossbar is always in the same spot. The upright's always in the same spot. And so it's something that I have done with players in the past, as far as saying, hey, if you feel like you're overwhelmed in a game, take a look up at the top of the uprights, and let's return back to it. And it's a mindfulness exercise, because it's saying, hey, my environment around me is changing. It's not what I wanted it to be. But how do I get back to being in control of myself? How do I recenter myself? Which I think is a super valuable tool. If you guys take anything from using this, I encourage you to do this. I use this in games all the time. I actually use the American flagpole as my centering point, which means I got to find it pregame in a lot of places. But centering is really great. I feel like it has a lot of helpful, like if you're in a game where things are not going your way. We play a team every season that can absolutely light up the scoreboard. And as a linebacker coach, it hurts playing them because I feel like we have a really bad game. Even though the weeks before that might have been good, the weeks after that might be really good too. This team's just really good at offense. And so a lot of times it takes a lot of mindfulness activities to recenter and say, okay, hey, we might be down 14, we might be down 10, we might be down whatever, but we still have a game to play, and we still have things that we want to do. While I'm here, I'm not a huge fan of the halftime speech that it's 0-0, because quite often it's not 0-0. And if you're down 10, if you're down 14, you have to have a plan for it. What I encourage instead is, hey, recenter yourself, evaluate yourself, and suggest that you're playing into a game, and then get back into it. This was a tool that I used a lot. I didn't have a lot of belief in it early on, but I was fortunate enough in my graduate program to work with some incarcerated youth, which centering was monumentally important for these guys because they woke up every day, looked at prison walls, and you can't muscle up to a prison wall. And so centering, being mindful, or, hey, this is the situation I'm in. What am I going to do? What am I going to make of it? Was a really strong tool for them. So that's kind of what we encourage our players to do. And one thing that we've talked to our coaching staff before about some of this stuff, and the rest of this is going to be kind of tools that I think are valuable for coaches to use, but also to share with their players as far as saying, hey, these are the tools that we're going to use. This is the type of feedback that we're going to try and give you guys. I feel like if the players are empowered and they know the approach that you're going to take, then they're much more receptive to it. Primarily with this slide, this is my all-time favorite slide that I've ever made in my entire life. I love showing this to the guys on our team as well because they love it. And they giggle about it all the time because if you're in education right now, or if you're going through some of the educational psychology of today, right, everyone's been real big on this compliment sandwich for a long time. And I'm not anti-compliment sandwich at all points in time, but I just think that in competition, it's not the best way to go. And so I talk to them about it, throw the slide up and say, hey guys, like, look, compliment sandwiches are soft, or in our program, pedigree. Pedigree is the worst insult that you can give somebody in our program. And so say, hey, these are no good. And then back it up and give them reasons that it's no good. So when we're talking about next play speed, and we're talking about 18 seconds between, again, tackle and next ball being snapped, this is not a efficient way to give feedback during that time frame. And especially if you're at the high school level, which I'm assuming most of us in here are. I certainly am. The compliment sandwich is not what we typically think about as a compliment sandwich. In school we talk about it, and it's a slice of bread, big piece of meat, and another slice of bread, and really, or I'm sorry, a flat piece of meat. But really, it's this ice cream sandwich. Because, right, the good things about a player at the lower levels that we're on are far outweighed by the stuff they can build on, unless you're just playing with dudes all over the field, and then you don't need this talk. But the feedback, the negative feedback that we oftentimes try and hide or package with this compliment sandwich is significantly thicker than the compliments that we can give our guys. And so we talk to them about it. We say, hey, look, you're not going to get a lot of compliment sandwiches from us because it's an inefficient form of feedback. We'd have to tell you a bunch of different things and things that don't matter as much to you or don't matter as much to us or the competition or whatever, just so that we can package this instruction that we're giving you. And so we're not going to go with this type of feedback. We're going to try and come up with a different methodology for it. In my experience, the compliment sandwich, is something that's good. When it's not competitive settings, it's not hostile environments. In hostile environments, though, the only time that I've seen the compliment sandwich show up as something that is efficient, and this goes into management as well and in business practices. The people that really like compliment sandwiches are the people that give them, right? Because it makes you feel better about delivering this message. It doesn't help the athlete, and a lot of times in competition, that's the most important part of it.
Definitely some very interesting information and details there from Coach Jezek. I think, again, looking at this time of the year and what can we do to really get that edge is that we fine-tune our players. So what we took from all those X's and O's, now we start working on the human side of these things. Certainly we're going to continue to refine what we do on the field. We want the mental side of the game too, and I think Coach Jezek did a great job of boiling that down and putting it into something that is usable for us and something that we can go on and pass on to our players and teach them about as well. His talk, this particular one, which was part 2 of a 2-part, as well as part 1, will be available in a bundle. I will put the link to that in the show notes, and you can save on that one now on CoachTube. I'll also put a link on coachandcoordinator.com. Follow all we're doing this season. Follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.